Welcome to bringing your property business to the 21st century. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of building an online presence. I'm Ashley Bloom and I head up the marketing division here at Raffingers.
And I'm Tim Dickinson and I'm the digital marketing executive here at Raffingers. So, Ashley, why do you think having an online presence is so important?
Having an online presence is important because it's the first place that potential clients go to look and find out anything. As a consumer, if you want to find out anything at all, any information, any research on a product or a service, the first place you go to find out that information tends to be online these days. So businesses without an online presence are immediately compromised through not being online and in that space where clients can find them. It's also important because in general, it just helps to build back brand and personal trust before anyone's even met you. Being online and sharing your personal thoughts, your opinions, and building that kind of level of experience and authority on the online world means that when somebody goes online, they see you, they trust you, and they believe what you're saying is true, ultimately. It also helps clients to decide whether they want to work with one business or another. So you know very well that if you're shopping around, you might look at different price points. You might look at different companies' core values to see if those values resonate with you or which values resonate with you for different businesses. So it's a really important part in the decision-making process for when clients are actually deciding, I want to work with this business or I don't want to work with this business. Ultimately, it also makes it easier to connect with your prospective clients on a deeper level as well. It's all very well to kind of cold call people, which is a very old school way of marketing. And whilst that's fine and it works in some situations, it tends to feel a little bit cold and hence it being called cold calling. So having an online presence means that you can really build those deeper connections with people by tapping into the problems that they need and helping them solve those problems. And ultimately in the property industry, this is a huge one. It makes you stand out from the competition. The property industry as a whole is still very far behind in terms of where they sit with their online presence in kind of the world. And generally speaking, if you can set up a decent online presence, you're going to stand out from competition pretty much straight away.
Nice.
So with that said, obviously, we brought you into Raffingers to help us as an accountancy firm enhance and develop our online presence. So it's been great seeing the work that you've been doing since you joined Raffingers and how we've kind of taken our social media platforms, our website, and all of that kind of stuff to a new level. But how do you begin enhancing or developing an online presence, especially through something like social media, if you've not got a social strategy or anything yet?
Right. I think back to the many times I've spoken with other people that run businesses and are managing their own social media independently. And I ask them, what are they doing with their social media? And they say they just post at this time, this day, 9 o'clock every single day. And I say, why? And they actually don't know why, which is never a good way to approach a social media strategy. You have to have a content strategy. You have to plan your posts in advance in a calendar, know what day, what time you're targeting your audience, which leads me on to my next point. You do actually need to underpin your audience. You have to understand who your audience are. So create some customer personas. What's their age? What's their gender? What's their job level? Do they have any hobbies? Any motivations? Are they going to be on one social platform or another? You're not going to be finding, a 16-year-old on TikTok, also on LinkedIn, probably, most likely.
Yeah.
So then you also need to start considering post frequency. There are a lot of standard opinions out there. The general rule of thumb, if you're not sure to begin with, is certainly with the big four. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Facebook, you're looking at 1 to 2 posts a day. Instagram, 1 post a day. You do not need to be doing any more than that because it's a very visual-based platform. 1 post will do enough. Twitter, 4 to 5 posts a day, purely on the basis that a tweet does have, as far as research has gone, a tweet has an average lifespan of about 8 minutes
Yeah.
in its prime time, and then it's kind of just lost in the ether, so to speak. With LinkedIn, it's a bit more of a special case. It's not a per day so much quota. It's more of 20 posts a month, 5 posts a week. LinkedIn posts tend to, if you're posting more than one post a day from the same company profile, you'll find that your LinkedIn posts are competing against each other. This is just a LinkedIn algorithm thing that, if you don't know already, you know it now.
Yeah.
Most importantly, be yourself. People like to feel like they're connecting with someone genuine. They want to build a relationship with you. If you're not being genuine, people can see that quite clearly. People are a lot more smart than some people give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
But also, that said, stick with your brand and be consistent with that. So whilst it's all good being all, I guess, yourself, make sure you're also getting across the brand, its mission statement, logos, all the visuals, because you want your brand to be recognizable across the internet, across social platforms, so that like someone who may not necessarily be thinking about you sees some imagery that looks like your brand and just goes, oh, that's so and so.
Yeah.
Okay. Tone of voice definitely is a key element to master. So different platforms have different tones of voice just inherently. LinkedIn is a lot more formal than, say, Facebook or Twitter. Twitter's a bit of an oddball. You can be either very formal or you can be very informal, depending on how your brand perceives itself on Twitter. Okay. I would also suggest experimenting with hashtags. Instagram is a big one with hashtags. The hashtags aren't seen as big a deal on other platforms. Instagram is the main driver for traffic through hashtags. You have up to 30 hashtags per post, and it's quite important to, once you've posted your post, see how it does over a period of time and compare that post against all your other posts, and then start to identify which hashtags are the common denominators and start building a more curated list of hashtags that definitely work for your posts that are, I guess, more general purpose, that can be used in any post. They aren't so topic specific.
Yeah.
I would also look at playing around with more bespoke hashtags, ones that you've either coined yourself or hashtags that are very rarely used, so that if you start using them in every post, you then become essentially the owner of that hashtag. But it's still a hashtag that is used by others, which means that you will actually be seen as the king of that hashtag.
That makes sense. And obviously we've spoken a lot about organic social, but what about, paid social? Because obviously nowadays it's so easy to set up adverts using algorithms that target people, for example, in property, who have been searching for properties in a specific area. Or, buyers in general are giving away so much information online. You could be showing somebody their dream property before they even know what they wanted. So do you think that paid social is important, and how can properties kind of jump on the world of paid social, and what paid social or paid advertising methods would work for a property business in general?
I mean, I think it's absolutely 100% important. It definitely works well for property, especially with the ability to target people based on their physical location. Mm-hmm. Facebook even allows you to target someone who's either permanently residing in that location or has just recently visited that location. So there's actual GPS tracking data there. Obviously, you want to be targeting people in a certain vicinity of the area that your property that you're selling is. So I don't know, say like somewhere between a 5 to 10 mile radius of that property, and then that ad will then be pushed to anyone that you deem is an eligible buyer of that property. So you can specify in your targeting, I want them to be, again, we're talking about underpinning your audience.
Yeah.
So age are they? What gender are they? What's their job level? You can even specify your audience based on their actual annual income. So that helps with property agencies for figuring out, okay, can this person actually afford to buy a house of this certain value?
Yeah.
So being able to target based on affluence is quite a key element here.
And remember, you shared with me on Instagram, or I shared with you, I can't remember, maybe it was LinkedIn. Somebody posted a post on LinkedIn that said that they were targeted with an ad through a remarketing strategy on Instagram of their absolute dream house. And they said they'd been searching online, you know, houses in Hackney or houses in wherever. And then their perfect house popped up on their Instagram profile, and they ended up actually going through and buying their house. Yeah. So I think it really does show that if you can tap into exactly what the buyer is looking for or exactly what your client wants, it can be an incredibly impactful way to connect with your target market and ultimately make the sale, which is why we do marketing in the first place, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it goes to say, I mean, like, when you think about how much screen time you spend on social media as opposed to a property searching site like Zoopla or Rightmove,
yeah,
you're more likely to see a property on a social media platform than these other websites. So yeah, a paid social advert definitely works for sure.
When you're building your website or you're enhancing your website, it's really important to put your best foot forward. You know, ensure your branding is up to scratch. It's like Tim said with social media, but on a much bigger level. You know, everything needs to be consistent. Your logos, your imagery, it all needs to be sharp. It needs to represent you. Your values need to be clear. Your services need to be really clear. Your pricing and how you work with people, your approach to new clients, your approach to new business. And ultimately, how easy are you making it for your target customer to actually get in touch with you? I mean, you don't have to have the most sophisticated website in the world. If you've not currently got a website and you're in the world of property, you can build websites relatively easy for service-based businesses on platforms like Wix, Squarespace, WordPress. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands on highly bespoke and amazing websites, but what you need is a website that really encapsulates who you are, what you do, builds brand trust, and ultimately SEO is going to be one of the most important things that comes with your website. And I'll let Tim give a little bit more information on what SEO is and why that kind of goes hand in hand with building and enhancing your website.
Yeah, so having a website, as Ashley just explained, is essential to your business. It gives you that extra level of credibility, because when people are looking for property, they are going to be searching online. It's the first place they go. They come across your name on social or word of mouth and then realize you haven't actually got a website. Alarm bells ring. You know, you start to wonder, why haven't they got a website? Are they trustworthy? How can I find out more about them and the work they do? So that's very important. With actually having a website, like Ashley said, you do want to make it look, you want to have it looking nice, for sure. I'm losing myself a bit now. So with the website, you want to have it looking professional and clean, clear. So you want your about page to be very clear, like, what are you, what's your business, what do you do, and focus on a few keywords as well that really are what your business is about. So property is obviously one, buying and selling, letting and renting, whatever it is that your specific property business focuses on, really nail down on that. Don't start spamming those keywords though, because then Google picks up on this and starts penalizing you for using and overusing these keywords, because the algorithm is always changing. But basically, the whole point of your website is you need to have it very clear on your website what you're about, and being clear and concise about it.
Definitely.
Just quality. That's all that Google's looking for: quality and clear content.
Definitely. And I think ultimately your website is like, it's almost like an online business card. So it's got to really quickly establish who you are, what you do, why you do it. And if you can get that across and that message across, you're going to be able to connect with your audience, you're going to be able to connect with your prospects, and ultimately you're going to be able to generate new business. Having websites great, we've explained why it's great. Having social media is great. But what are other ways that you can add value for your customers or your potential customers? Having something like a blog, for example, is a great way to increase and improve your online presence, because having a blog helps you position yourself as an expert in your field. Also, if you're creating content for a blog, such as long form articles or top 10 lists or really useful help sheets, things like that, you've then got content that you can use on your social media platforms to help amplify them. You've got content on your website which you can use to drive traffic over to your website, so that when people land on your website, it isn't just a sales page. It's got added value there for your customers. It makes you the go-to business for industry advice, the go-to person that is known as an expert in your field. You have built a hub of resources that mean that when people go to your website, they know that they are going to find the information they need on what you do as a service. So it's super, super important that you're not just thinking about being on social media and just posting for the sake of posting, or having a website that just says who you are but doesn't add any real value. It's how you can use those things and then enhance them further by launching something like a blog or a YouTube channel with really great video tours of properties that you're developing or anything like that. But how you can create additional content and then amplify that content on your website and through your social media, which
100%.
Ultimately enhances trust, right? And it helps you build personal connections, which generates leads, generates new business.
It also boosts SEO as well.
Yes, exactly that.
So if someone actually wants to Google top 10 locations to buy a property in the northeast London, and you just happen to have written a blog article of top 10 locations to buy in northeast London, the odds of you coming up on the search list on Google are a lot higher.
Yeah.
So people can find your website through that means.
Exactly. So it's got a lot of benefits and it's really worth considering. The next thing I just want to briefly touch on is the importance of online reviews. Online presence doesn't just mean social media, a website, a blog, YouTube channel, whatever it might be. Online reviews are super important. 72% of consumers trust online reviews as much as they would a personal recommendation. So if your business currently generates most of its new business and its new leads from client referrals, existing customer referrals, then you are missing a huge trick by not having those people who are referring you every single day provide you with a Google review for your Google My Business page, or a testimonial that you can publish on your online channels, a video case study, a case study of what you've done with that business. It's so important and cannot be underestimated enough, because as we said, the first place your potential prospect is going to look for any new business or service that they're interested in is online. And when they go online and they've seen your website, great. They've seen you're active on social media, fine. They can see that you've got a blog article and that you clearly know what you're talking about, and that's excellent. But whilst all that is good, I personally would still want to see some sort of review or some sort of proof, evidence that actually it's not just all talk. It doesn't sound great. It is great. And that people have got a really positive experience working with you, interacting with you. And that takes you from a brand or a business to a person. And, it's knowing that people have engaged with your business, met the person behind the business, and really believe that that person is who other people should be working with, which is why they've left a review. So that cannot be undervalued enough. But I want to leave today's session, Tim, just by sharing with people some ideas outside of the box that they can tap into kind of online and build their online presence. So one thing that I was thinking about was obviously the world of influencer marketing these days. And, you know, for most industries, you assume that influencer marketing wouldn't work, right? For the accountancy profession, our profession, you would assume, you know, who would I work with, as in it, like what influencers would even work for my business? How would that relationship look? How could I tap into that? But what I think is a trend that I can see emerging are businesses and industries like property, professional services, construction, starting to really jump on this influencer marketing trend. You know, an example is I've seen on Instagram, there is such a rise of kind of micro influencers that have, you know, up to 1 million followers on Instagram who post renovation and interior design and all that kind of stuff on their Instagram feed, or they, you know, they purchase their first property, which is really run down, and they develop it over time and they log their journey. And how cool would it be if a huge property development company partnered with an influencer? You know, if you were developing a property that was going to end up being maybe student flats, right? So ultimately you were building a building that was going to end up being student apartments or student flats for university accommodation or something like that. So very niche. You decide, okay, how can we, once this property is developed, ensure that we are then able to actually secure buyers and people that are actually renting these properties, right? So could you work with a micro influencer who develops or renovates properties and get them to log their journey doing the interiors of your property, your flats, or whatever it is that you've done? And they're logging that on their social media platforms. You're following your journey. They might take over your social media platforms. You might go, at some points, take over theirs to show the build side of what you're developing. And that way you're tapping into their audiences who sit perfectly within the demographic that is ultimately your end kind of buyer. So I think it's really important to think about how you can amplify your online presence further through thinking outside of the box. What can you do differently that other businesses in your sector are not thinking about doing, and what you can do to stand out from your competitors? Thanks so much, Tim, for joining me on this video. You've provided so many valuable insights, and I hope that people found this video useful and enjoy the rest of the series. I'm Ashley Bloom.
And I'm Tim Dickinson.
And this is bringing your property business to the 21st century. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with one of us today.